Hey, good morning, Eastern Oregon, and welcome to this October 15th version of AM Live on EOA, your connection to Eastern Oregon. You can find all of our content, all of the places where our content is available on the EOA.network. We're glad that you're here with us today. Here in a bit, we're going to have Alex McCadden is with us first because we're going to be talking about the measures that are on the ballot, and then Nick Vora, Union County Emergency Services Director. Is that close? Yeah, it will be with us. So, all right. How are you, man?
Good.
Things
Second
good?
Monday already. We're already halfway through October.
Yeah.
This year is going to be over soon.
When I looked at the 15th of October, and I still have troubles writing 24, and I want to write 23. So here we are.
Yeah.
Well, hey, let's we got stuff going, so once you get sports, get to it.
And Sports Report brought to you by Northwest Furniture and Mattress. The Flex Steel Zofa combines cutting-edge technology with supreme comfort. With zero-gravity recline, motion-sensitive LED lighting, and wellness-enhancing nano-bionic fabric, every detail is designed for your comfort. Visit Northwest Furniture and Mattress right here in town. Big Red Rocking Chair on Elm off Adams and LeGrand. LeGrand Volleyball made it 3 in a row this weekend with a couple victories in the Seaside tournament. That's cool. They go to Baker for a GOL game on Thursday at 6:30. The Tigers are 5-9 overall and 1-2 in the GOL. The girls soccer team up at the high school is at Ontario today for a 5 p.m. GOL matchup. LHS girls soccer is 8-1-1 overall and undefeated at 3-0 in the GOL, and right now they sit number 2 in the OSAA polls. Boys soccer lost to Ontario last night, 5-1. The boys are 4-7 and 1-3 in the GOL. They host Baker next Tuesday, 4 p.m. up at Community Stadium. LHS football had a huge win over Baker on Thursday night right here at Community Stadium, 43-6. A beat-up Baker, that is. Baker's quarterback went down the week before, their top wide receiver, and then they lost their top wide receiver on Thursday night with Rashawn Jones going down with a shoulder injury. This Thursday, 7 p.m. up at Community Stadium is homecoming for the Tigers. They'll host Burns. They're 4-2 and 2-0 overall in the GOL. So, I mean, this Burns game is kind of weird to me. Like it was supposed to be on the road. They moved it to home. It's right in the middle of the GOL season, and it's a non-league game. I mean, I don't even know why it was on the schedule in the first place. But I mean, I guess I've never. It doesn't usually happen where there's a non-league game right in the middle of the league season. So it's all right though. We'll televise it right here on the EOA Live Network, Thursday, 7 p.m., homecoming, LeGrand Tigers. We'll also be televising Baker and Ontario the following night at 7 p.m. right here on the EOA Live Network, and that'll be live from Bulldog Stadium in Baker City. Football around the valley saw Imbler lose to Powder Valley, 42-16. Cove lost to Union, 54-50. And Elgin was on their bye week this week. EOU volleyball lost to Southern on Friday night in a top 5 matchup. It was a 5-set thriller. It literally came down to the last couple points, and EOU just couldn't get it done. So they go to 18-2 in conference, and their only 2 losses are to Southern. The good thing about the weekend, though, is EOU volleyball turned around and won on Saturday night, and that same Southern team went to College of Idaho and got swept by the Yotes. So now there's basically 3 teams. Well, there's 2 teams with 2 losses, and then you have Corbin with 1 loss who sits at the top. But we get Corbin at home in a couple weeks, so that'll be a huge game with CCC hosting implications. That's what we want. We want the CCC tournament here at Quinn, and as of right now, there's a possibility for that. EOU men's soccer beat University of Providence on Friday night 3-1, and then on Saturday in the CCC game of the week, They battled Carroll to a 90-minute draw. That's the worst thing about soccer, kissing your sister. Ties. I hate ties. And you play 90 minutes to say, good game, we tied. There's no winner. That's what I don't like that about soccer at all. First-year goalie Sebastian Guillen came in at the 71-minute mark. So 71 minutes into the game, they changed the goalie. I don't know. I'm not sure why. I don't think the goalie was hurt, but Sebastian came in and had 2 huge saves down the stretch, diving saves. And for his efforts, he was named the CCC Defender of the Week. He played 18 and a half minutes out of 90 and was named Player of the Week. It's crazy. Their Mountie men's soccer team's currently in second place in the CCC. They're 2-0-2 and 5-2-3 overall. They host College of Idaho this Saturday, 4:30 p.m. Community Stadium. EOU women's soccer won their 3rd and 4th games in a row over the weekend with wins over Providence and Carroll. The Mountie women are 5-2 in the CCC and 6-3-2 overall. They host College of Idaho this Saturday. I got some pictures. Gabe, some women's soccer pictures, please. They host College of Idaho this Saturday in a huge game, 2 p.m., Community Stadium. So we got College of Idaho coming to town this weekend, and they're big games. EOU football made it 3 Frontier Conference wins in a row with a huge 28-21 homecoming win over MSU Northern. LHS grad Brody Mack had his first 100-yard rushing game as a Mountie. What a good day to do it. He ran 21 times for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Mounties came back from a halftime deficit. I was worried at halftime, man. I was thinking, we cannot lose to these guys at homecoming. They came back after halftime with a game plan and executed it and ended up getting the win. The Mounties are 3-3 overall, 3-1 in the Frontier, which is, it's right about kind of where I figured we would be at this point in the season. The rest of the season is tough for this Mountie football team, and I'm just hoping we can find a way to get a couple more wins out of this season. They travel to Helena this Saturday to take on Carroll College at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. It was a great weekend of sports for me, other than a loss to SOU in volleyball. Oregon beat Ohio State. EOU football won. EOU women's soccer won 2. Men's soccer won 1 and tied 1. Volleyball bounced back on Saturday against OIT. Yeah, just a really good weekend of sports for me. Tigers football won. I couldn't ask for anything more other than my Padres losing to the Dodgers in Game 5 of the NLDS. And Sports Report brought to you by Northwest Furniture and Mattress. Big Red Rocking Chair on Elm, off Adams in LaGrange.
All right, good stuff. Thank you. All right, so let's look at outside, look at the weather. It's chilly this morning, and it looks like it's going to be chilly in the future mornings this week. So let's take a look at that graphic. So 46 today, and then tomorrow the high is 57. The high on Thursday is 46. So, yeah.
Might have a rainy football game on Thursday up at Community Stadium.
Yeah, yep. And then, so it's going to be cool and rainy. So Wednesday,
I'm just thrilled
Wednesday
about
and
that,
Thursday. Yep. All righty. Well, cool. Thank you. All right. Hey, so Alex, how are you, man?
Oh, I am just loving this fall weather.
Are you? Well, I'm glad you're here with us, and thank you. You've taken a look at the measures for us.
Oh yeah.
And the ballot measures, and let's pull up the screen, and let's just take a look at just go through them here, Gabe. All righty. So
Yeah.
First of all, the ballot measure 115. Tell us about that.
So we've got 5 statewide ballot measures this year.
Okay.
The first one, Measure 115, is about allowing the legislature to impeach and remove a statewide elected official from office. Oregon is one of the only states that doesn't give the legislature the power to remove somebody like the governor for misconduct or breaking a law. We have the recall, and that's what people have kind of justified for so long, is that, well, you can recall the governor if they do something wrong. But if you put in a situation like this, in the last 10 years, we've had 2 statewide elected officials resign because of serious corruption scandals. And if they hadn't been pressured, if they had survived pressure to resign, the only recourse would have been a recall, which would have taken several months. Meanwhile, you have somebody who's grifting and doing things for their personal benefit in office for months without anybody checking them. So the idea is to give the legislature the power to move swiftly. If, for example, the governor is arrested for aggravated assault, hopefully that never happens. The idea would be give the legislature the power to get that person out of office immediately.
Doesn't a recall cost a lot of money, too?
It does.
A lot of
And
resources?
you need hundreds of thousands of dollars to get the signatures collected just to get it on the ballot, and then you have to go out and pitch to voters by buying campaign
So
ads.
this changes it to where the legislator can
Yeah, this
basically
would
just...
this gives the legislature the power in addition to the recall. The recall would still be there.
Oh, so
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer in my
Yeah.
eyes.
Okay,
Yep.
good. All right. So 116.
All right, Measure 116. Oregon has some of the most poorly paid political officials in the whole United States. Our governor is the 47th lowest paid in the country, and our state legislators make $35,000 a year. So our legislature is usually either people who are independently wealthy or retired, or they work for unions who let them take 5 months off every other year to write pro-union laws in the legislature. So that doesn't really leave a legislature that's really representative of the population. So the idea is that the governor would be allowed to appoint a independent commission that would evaluate the roles that each of these offices is fulfilling, and then allow them to set a new salary. So right now, the only other option would be for the governor and the legislators to vote themselves a new salary, which doesn't really feel all that great if they're going, yeah, I think I deserve $100,000 raise this year. Sure. So this would take it out of the legislature's hands and put it in an independent commission's hands.
Pros and cons.
All right, so we had a Secretary of State resign last year because her $77,000 a year salary wasn't covering her basic life expenses living in Portland, so she was making $10,000 a month on the side consulting for a marijuana company that she was
I
also
remember
supposed
that.
to audit.
Yeah.
And that was an issue, is that we can't really recruit people who are effective if there's not a salary to go along with that position they have. So the pro ultimately is that you're going to open up the possibility of service in the legislature to way more people other than the current small pool of the independently wealthy and retirees.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Measure 117.
Ranked choice voting. Okay, this is one that I actually enjoy because I'm a nerd and I like it. The idea is that you would be able to get a set of candidates and rank them, which ones you like the best and which ones you like the least. It very rarely does a politician for statewide and even congressional office in Oregon get over 50% of the vote in the general election. Usually we just give the office to whoever wins the most votes, not whoever wins a majority of the vote. And the idea would be that instead of having a second runoff election to get the top two to a majority, you give people the ability to rank their candidates right before then. So instead of having a second election, they count whoever gets the most votes, and then whoever gets the second most votes, they'll start adding those. If nobody gets a majority, they'll start adding the votes for the next tiers of people up until somebody gets a majority of the vote.
So does it eliminate primaries then?
No.
Okay, so don't primaries doesn't primaries normally eliminate it down to 2 candidates?
Well, in a lot of our local elections, that happens. Like
Yeah.
county commissioner, we had 9 people run, and
Right.
nobody got the majority, so we narrowed it down to 2. This is for the fall general elections when there's a Republican, there's a Democrat, there's a Libertarian, a Green, a Working, an
Okay.
Independent, all
Right.
that.
Okay.
So there's usually
So when you have more than 2 parties that have a candidate and they're all running against each other.
Yeah.
Like in the last governor election.
yes.
Okay. So, but like the county clerks, and I remember Robin talked to me about this a while. Robin Church. I always know. Is that right? I always
Yeah,
mess up
Robin
her last
Church.
name. Yeah.
Yeah.
And at this point, most of the municipalities don't even have a way of doing ranked choice voting, and so there's a cost to this. Is that, do you know that? I mean,
So, pardon me, it's kind of there are different elements to this. This bill specifically would affect, it would require the statewide offices in Congress to be elected via ranked choice voting, not cities and
Okay.
counties. So
Okay.
cities and counties could do it if they want to, but they are not required to.
Okay, and so, and somebody said the other day that had ranked choice voting been a part of the last governor election, then Betsy would have been, their felt was that.
No, Christine Drazan would have floored it. She
Okay.
would have been the governor nominee, no questions asked.
Okay, all right. Well, let's go on. Measure 118. So what is it? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, Measure 118. Okay, so if you like taxes, here's some taxes on your taxes while we tax you on your taxes.
Oh, God.
Yeah. The idea is that every company that makes more than $25 million a year, there would be, in addition to all the taxes they already pay, there would be a 3% gross receipts taxes on that 25 million plus. And the idea is that it would be gathered up, and then every month the state would then send a $750 check to everybody in Oregon.
Okay.
Every month?
Every month.
Oh, what?
Yeah, so it would be at the cost of everything becoming really expensive. Cost of living
Yeah.
and inflation in the United States is really bad everywhere right now, but it's a lot worse in Oregon because of our big gross receipts taxes. So this is taking a problem that's already killing us and just like driving the final nail in our coffin economically.
So how does something like that even get on the ballot? I mean, who is behind that kind of stuff?
I mean, any number of groups will go out there and go, you know what, the rich need to pay their fair share. And they'll go on the street and go, hey, do you think we should tax corporations to give you free money every month? And people go, yeah, sure. And that's kind of the end of the conversation.
Okay.
They're not having substantive debates on the street. People just stand on corners in Eugene with a flyer and says, hey, you want to sign this for free money a month? Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of the end of it.
Okay. All right. And then Measure 119.
Yeah, if you like unions and weed, this is your thing. This is a ballot measure to require all dispensaries in Oregon to be unionized in order to get a license to operate. So, yeah, like I said, if those are your two big issues, everyone should be unionized. Weed is great.
But how is
Not
that?
just dispensaries, though.
Yeah, the farmers as well. Yeah.
But how is that? Why would somebody who was in the weed business be pro Measure 119? I mean, what is the advantage?
No.
for them?
If you like weed, not saying if you like selling it. If you like selling it, you probably don't want to do this.
I was going to say, I don't know.
Right, but again, for the person who likes weed, how does that benefit them for the weed for this to be unionized? I don't understand.
Well, it benefits the unions. I mean, so the
Probably
unions,
benefits the workers, I would imagine.
well, yeah, collective bargaining agreements are great for laborers. I like them. You look at the way this started. There was an attempt to get this done as a law in the 2023 session, and the committee chair from Eugene, who was there, killed it, and he was recalled by the unions. They tried to recall him because they didn't like that he killed their bill to get those dispensaries unionized. So because they couldn't get that and because they couldn't recall him over it, they decided to put it on the ballot statewide.
Can areas like towns or counties that have opted out of weed, you know how Union County we opted out, do they get to vote on this?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think we should. I don't think they should get to vote on things. If you opt out, you're out.
Well, it's a state initiative. That's how
It's
state
statewide. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, if you don't want to, you don't have to vote. No, you're not required to
No,
vote.
I know.
On any of these.
But at the end of the day, it benefits the unions, and that's why it's on the ballot. Is that what you're being?
Yeah.
Yeah,
More
okay.
or less.
All righty, that's all of them, right?
Yeah. Like
Okay.
I said, the last one is a very odd one. Like it's very hyper specific and doesn't really warrant this type of statewide conversation. But they got on the ballot, so.
Yeah. All right.
Whatever
Well,
you
hey,
want.
give us a pitch to vote before we quit.
Yes, please vote. Golly. Oregon is one of the highest voting states in America in terms of just the percentage of population of votes. So keep up doing that. I don't know, shameless plug, please vote yes on the new LeGrand City Charter amendments and the new Elgin City Charter. I think those are both pretty good. So
Yeah. All right.
go, vote.
Vote. All right. Hey, thank you guys. We will be right back with Nick Vora. Welcome to Creating Memories for Disabled Children at beautiful Wallowa Lake, Oregon. Over the years, we have offered families of children with disabilities a free vacation at our beautiful camp properties. These getaways are a respite for families who often deal with an increased amount of emotional stress, financial hardships, and isolation. At Creating Memories, these families are able to relax in the knowledge that their child is loved and that their efforts are seen. Since 2018, we have completed a cabin renovation every 2 years, continually increasing our capacity to serve. We have fully renovated 3 cabins to become fully accessible lodging for families, including full kitchens and wheelchair-accessible bathrooms. We now turn our focus to the lodge building at the Creating Memories camp. Our vision for the lodge includes gatherings, networking, education, connections, community, and fellowship. We want it to be a place for families to share their struggles and joys, their needs and their knowledge, their setbacks and their celebrations. We are creating memories for disabled children, and our mission is to do just that. All right, we are back with Nick Vora, Union County Emergency Management.
Emergency manager, emergency services
yeah.
director.
Okay, good.
Rephrase that. The 2024 OEMA Public Sector Emergency Management Professional of the Year.
That award name has got to almost fill the entire plaque.
Yeah.
Well, I had to put it.
You
on
wrote
paper.
it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Why are you blushing?
Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Who gave you that award?
So that came from the Oregon Emergency Management Association, which is Oregon's a professional association of emergency managers.
Okay.
Very cool. So it's peers.
Yes.
Essentially, that's nothing better than an award from your peers.
It's quite the honor, and I think it reflects every bit as much on all the people who have helped me become an emergency manager and work in this field. There's a tremendous amount of support from around the state, and certainly not something I could have done by myself.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But you are super intense. I mean, you and I have had lots of conversations. We've talked several times. You are like really deserving of that award. But part of it is just that your whole life is around this kind of stuff.
I love my job.
Right.
And
yeah.
It's so being able to work in all the different aspects and facets of emergency management that I do is I love it.
Yeah. Well, so are we at the end of fire season?
It looks like Wednesday or Thursday at least. I think
Okay.
we can probably, the weather looks like with the rain and everything.
Yeah, okay.
It's been really, really surprising how we've seen the really dry conditions continue, and have seen fires that were burning in August, still burning now. It's incredible. But fire season, from the county's perspective, administratively, it ended on October 2nd.
Okay.
So along with that, we did implement a new burn permit process.
Yeah, and so let's talk about that a little bit, because so Matt Scarfo was here the other day, and we talked about the end of fire season and that the open burning was going to be available. And the reason that matters to me is we live out in Island City. We have an acre. 2/3 of that is vacant. It's just field, and so then we accumulate our leaves and branches and so on and so forth. Okay, so. But very seldom do I ever burn the burn pile that it's not wet. Okay, so then it never burns. All right, and so then I was like, when Matt said that the other day, it's like, oh, this would be. But the one thing Matt said was, the things are really dry, and you have to be really cautious and careful. Okay, and so then last Saturday I had a minute, and it was dry still, so I was anxious to get that going. And so, and then and I'm sorry for I had your number and I called you directly because I knew that you would have the answers and so on and so forth. So talk to us about that. And I was in many of the commissioner meetings when this ordinance, that ordinance came forward and was adjusted. And so, I don't know, give us some background from there. Yeah.
So, our former burn permit process in Union County that the fire departments used, and essentially it goes by agency having jurisdiction, which our ordinance only applies to areas outside of city limits, because within city limits, the cities determine what they'll do. Outside of city limits, agencies having jurisdiction for fires are the rural fire protection districts in areas within their districts, and then outside of a district, which there's a surprising amount of area in Union County. It's about 34,000 acres that is outside of a rural fire protection district and outside of city limits. In that case, the county is a portion of government would be the sole jurisdiction.
Okay.
So when you say that, does that mean that area, like if something does happen, the state covers that area?
It's technically unprotected.
Oh, wow.
So there's
34,000 acres.
And that is a whole nother topic might be something to discuss another day. We could talk about it today if you'd like to, but we have unprotected lands in Union County that technically, if a fire starts on that land, the landowner is responsible for fire suppression.
Okay.
But that's not to say that we wouldn't send somebody out there.
So if it is presenting a risk to protected lands, something like that, but we have had some really tragic instances in past years where people weren't aware that they didn't have fire protection.
Wow.
And what we did is a few years ago, I sent a letter out to every landowner to let them know that just heads up, you don't have fire protection, and this is the process to acquire it.
Okay.
So they would have to pay for it, or?
So they would essentially request to be annexed in to a rural fire protection district.
Yeah.
And I met with all the fire chiefs in the county, and we identified for every piece of land that didn't have protection, what district would make the most sense from a practicality and response standpoint for them to annex into, so that we didn't have people shopping for fire coverage.
Yeah, shouldn't everybody, shouldn't it be a requirement?
So there actually is a requirement in 2025, which is coming up very quickly. It's part of Senate Bill 762, that every piece of land in Oregon have wildfire coverage that is at risk of wildfire. So there's some, if there were an unprotected area that wasn't at risk for wildfire, then wouldn't necessarily apply. But I think it'll be very interesting to see how that sorts out, because the bill says that the counties shall ensure that there is fire protection. And I'm talking about like response, not from an insurance standpoint.
Right.
Fire protection on land susceptible to wildfire, but it doesn't say who the counties will get that through, and that's potentially quite expensive.
So let's back up. Can you think of any land in the 34 1,000 acres that is not wildfire?
Very, very little, if any.
Yeah.
So he said there's a lot of it is irrigated cropland.
Okay.
So there's portions of the year where there'd be essentially zero wildfire risk.
Okay.
But then there's other portions of the year if someone had an irrigated grain crop,
Okay.
where that could be an extremely high fire risk.
Okay.
So I think in the past, when the districts were originally formed, a lot of the landowners of those fields decided it probably wasn't worth at the time their expense to pay for fire protection. They probably thought that if it burns, it burns.
Okay, and so, and fire, just before we go back to what we're to, fire protection districts are paid for essentially because everybody chips in a tax.
Yes.
Everybody chips in to pay for the expense of that fire district.
Yep, because the equipment, if you think a fire truck now
Right.
is $500,000 to $750,000.
Right.
And so just being able to replace those every 20, 25 years.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But we can go back to the burn permits.
Yeah. So no, that's super interesting. Okay. So yeah. So let's go back. Okay. So then the land that is in the fire district area, they manage that. The cities manage that. The other land is managed by the county as far as whether people can burn or not.
Yes.
Okay.
So administratively, there are numerous agencies having jurisdiction. technically.
Right.
So as the Fire Defense Board, which I sit on in addition to all the fire chiefs in the county.
Okay.
We came together last spring, and the fire chiefs provided input on what they would like to see from a revised burn permit system. So the county ordinance, which we also revised, requires that someone have a permit to do open burning. And then we also identified some exempted burning, such as a recreational fire, that you don't need a permit for.
Okay.
If it's permitted to do due to conditions, then you can do it. You don't need a permit. But the ordinance does require for open burning, so that would be like a slash pile,
Like
a broadcast
a burn pile.
burn, burning a ditch, that type of thing, that you have a permit. So then administratively, the Fire Defense Board made a recommendation to the county on the process for that. And what the fire chiefs decided on, what their preference would be, is to just have a copy of the ordinance in physical or electronic form in your possession be your permit. Because the system that preceded that was a phone recording. People would call 963-4040, which is still the number to call to do burning. So 963-4040, still the number. Now when you call that number, it will tell you if based on air quality forecasts and conditions, whether or not burning is permitted that day.
Okay.
And then it will advise you that you're required to have a permit, or the ordinance, in your possession as your permit.
Okay.
So that's the current system. After the air quality message on whether or not, say for the different departments or districts, press a different number.
Yeah.
And then you would go to a voicemail machine, you'd leave a message. In most cases, the department would maybe do some additional information about burning in their district, and then they would ask for your name and address. The problem was would get a lot of burn complaints, but there'd be 40 voicemails on the machine, and we wouldn't have time to listen for for 40 one-minute voicemails before responding to a call. So what we found is the system, due to the amount of people who were burning and thankfully using the system, that it wasn't as effective as it was in the past.
Right.
So now with the system, we'll still respond to the calls as we were, but it's much easier for us to determine if someone's in compliance. It's, do you have a copy of the ordinance? Yes. And it's a burn day? Good to go, as long as they're doing it safely.
Right.
And we don't have to have someone go to the station and click through 40 voicemails to try and find the one to see if they're burning in accordance with the rules. So that was kind of due to the amount of burn complaints that departments were receiving, 911, This was a way that the fire chiefs hoped to simplify the process and also reduce the chances of somebody saying, well, I didn't know. It's,
Right.
well, if you're required to have the ordinance, it's much more difficult to say, oh, I didn't know that I couldn't do that. Or I didn't know I couldn't burn tires and shingles
Right,
in my
right.
recreational fire.
Right.
And some of that stuff's common sense.
It's
though.
common sense, but you would be surprised.
Oh, I know.
Or,
I know.
I didn't know
because-
that I couldn't burn an RV in my yard.
Right. Well, but and yeah, and this is so. Let's just go real quick. Let's go through. So when you do a burn, it's supposed to like the kind of burn that I'm talking. We're not talking about burn barrels. We're not talking about a fire ring in your backyard. We're talking about like you have a pile of stuff, okay? But that's supposed to be yard debris. It's not supposed to be construction material. It's not, right? It's not
Yes,
supposed to
and
be
so-
not supposed to be tires. It's not supposed to be garage sale stuff that you didn't sell, right? Yeah.
So yes, and that is not so much a county rule as it is a state law.
yeah.
Okay.
And so Oregon Department of Environmental Quality prohibits burning of the things you mentioned: construction debris, tires, asphalt shingles,
Garbage, plastic.
Yeah. So basically, things that produce a toxic and offensive smell.
Okay.
For the most part. And so that's state regulations. So we aligned our county ordinance to be in alignment with state laws,
Okay.
to be less confusing to
Right.
people. Because it's like, well, the county allows it. Why is the state
Right,
giving
right.
me a fine?
Right.
So now, if someone reads the ordinance, it substantially mirrors state law, so that hopefully to keep people out of trouble, that if they just look at the county ordinance, it would inform them substantially on what they can and cannot burn.
Yeah. And then the other requirements is that you've got to be in attendance of the fire the entire time.
Yes.
You've got to have a water source. Is that right? I can't remember. Yeah.
Yes.
And also a shovel, right? I mean, I don't.
Yes,
Remind me
it's-
of the specifics. of
And
that. Yeah.
so have a firefighting tool
Right.
available, have a source of water, and have a responsible person
Yeah.
in charge. So leaving a 3-year-old or leaving a 2-year-old in a cradle watching the fire while you go in the house, that's not being
Yeah.
responsible on many levels. So having an adult who's able to watch the fire and really if something were to go wrong, able to report.
Right.
I need help
Right.
here.
Yeah. And so to simplify it, so they call the number, and the number says yes, it's a burn day, or not, it's a burn day.
Correct.
Period. Okay. And then from there, they have to have in their possession either an electronic or a physical copy of the ordinance, and they're good to go. And normally the message tells them, yes, you can burn in the afternoon.
Yes, we have it split morning and afternoon.
Okay.
And the reason for that is in Union County, specifically the Grand Ronde Valley, even though it might appear to be a beautiful day outside, our smoke dispersion is often not as good in the morning as it is in the afternoon when we have more atmospheric mixing and the smoke goes up and away rather than kind of plateaus and spreads out across the valley, as it often would early in the morning before, if there's a light inversion before that lifts.
Right.
So that's the reason for that, because if we were to just do by the day, we'd have to go with the lowest common denominator, which we would end up with a lot of no burn days.
Right.
And so by doing that in the afternoon, it's slightly more inconvenient, but at least it allows people to do something that day.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because when I was a kid, and I was hunting with my dad, and we would have a fire. If the smoke was low to the ground, you knew there was a high pressure system, and then there was a likelihood of a storm coming in. So then in those kind of conditions, it would not normally be a burn day, because the idea is that you want the smoke to go up and go away and disperse, right? So,
Yes, exactly.
all right. Well, okay, good. We've thoroughly baked that thing, I hope. So, yeah.
And and if people have any questions, they can call the county, and we'd be happy to have a conversation with them. But 963-4040 is the number to call.
Yeah.
And that's a 541 number. and then they'll just follow the recording from there.
So just briefly, I mean, we have an air quality station. People have no idea how much information is available to you guys based on whether it's a burn day. I mean, I think that's a little bit interesting. Go into that a little bit, will you?
There's a variety of factors that go into what makes the recording a burn day or not. Okay. So we look at existing air quality, the air quality index, so the PM 2.5. And then in addition to that, we also are looking at the forecast, and it's substantially driven by the forecast. So we've worked with the National Weather Service in Pendleton to identify what forecast elements are most useful and relevant to us in the Grand Ronde Valley to predict for a given day whether or not burning would be appropriate. So it is a forecast that substantially drives that we pull every morning from the Weather Service. So and the point of that is to reduce air quality impacts on the citizens of Union County, while also allowing people to burn. There are areas like City of LeGrand is designated as a smoke-sensitive receptor area. So it is actively monitored by DEQ for air quality impacts. And we work with DEQ to have a system like this in place to minimize the amount of external regulation that's imposed on Union County and to self-govern our burning. In the absence of having our own air quality program and regulations, if we were to have consistently poor air quality, if it was a free-for-all and people burning wet piles of leaves on inversion days, then we could potentially see ourselves being subject to additional regulations.
Got it. Okay. So, and then one more question before we go on. So, in the middle of the fire season, and I remember this happening this last summer, there was a farmer that was burning a field, I presume, because it was like, I mean, there was a ton of smoke out in the valley, and the first reaction was, holy smoke,
Literally.
What's going on? Yeah, what's going on? Yeah. So talk about, I mean, is there ever a danger of those things out of control, and how is that regulated? How does that happen?
So Union County has an ordinance, I believe it's 2002-4, I may be wrong, but around 2000, the early 2000s, Union County passed an ordinance that is specific to the agricultural field burning program. So our open burning ordinance that we have just been discussing specifically does not apply to regulated agricultural field burning because we don't want to have two county ordinances either be a duplicate or in conflict with each other.
Okay.
So there's another ordinance that regulates the agricultural field burning. So there is a smoke management center this summer, as in past summers, housed at the Imbler fire station. So there is a burn program manager there that follows regulations from DEQ, as well as a plan that is put together by the Union County seed growers and approved by the county. And that plan that they have put together and is implemented by the program manager essentially is what determines when farmers can and cannot burn their fields. They coordinate that with the smoke management coordinator there. And that person is just working with agricultural burns, not recreational stuff. So, and the purpose of that burning is from an agricultural pest management standpoint. And to answer your question more directly about how, have we had problems? To my knowledge, permitted agricultural burns that are done through the smoke center, I'm not aware of any of those escaping and causing a problem. It's possible that it has happened and I'm not aware of it, but we have had problems with unpermitted, someone just going out and thinking that they'll burn a field someday and it's not a good or appropriate day to burn, causing problems. And this summer, there were several citations issued for people burning without a permit. And so we have had instances where those have required an emergency response to prevent a public safety risk. But so usually, if you do see an emergency response to a fire, it's in a field, it's either unintentional or not legal.
And normally when those field burns happen, they're burning stubble. It's not very big. It's not very And the flame, the point is that all of the fuel burns up very quickly. And it's contained. I mean, it's got a border.
Generally, there's gravel roads, and they have water trucks, and if they burn from the outside in, the convection of the heat pulls all of the smoke and burning materials to the center. And that's why it goes up super fast. It's like a woof. And also, hopefully, that generates enough heat so that it will create its own a bit of uplift to punch through any remaining inversion type layers that may exist with high pressure.
Well, and the other thing, before we go on to something else, the other thing was, I mean, once I did burn my burn pile the other day, it was then all of those things of like, Matt said, but it's something you have to really be careful about, is like, it burned the first 5 minutes of the pile because it was all really dry branches and leaves and stuff, I mean, it was hot. It was so hot I couldn't, and so there was a moment of like, oh crap, I hope this doesn't get out of control, And so the point is that they can get out of control. Be careful.
Yes, and we've had several burns so far this year that have been what otherwise would have been a legal burn, but it got out of control and required an emergency response. We, as the County Fire Defense Board, allowed fire season to expire on October 2nd with conditions. They were still dry, but not necessarily critical. We're in moderate fire danger in most areas. So that doesn't exempt people from common sense. And it's unfortunate that we have to say that, but we wanted to give people the freedom to make good decisions. And substantially, 98% of the people out there, 99, have made good, responsible decisions with fire. And there'll always be people that, even whether it's legal or not, can lead to problems. But it was important to the Fire Defense Board, as well as the county, that we're in that time of year where conditions can turn and be really cool and wet quickly. And if people have a lot of things that need to be burned, we didn't want to have them generating a lot of smoke in February trying to burn a wet pile. So give them the freedom to make good decisions.
Thank you. So winter's coming. It's cooling down. Are you changing your rescue gear? And I mean,
Yes. So tracks going on wheeled machines. As far as search and rescue goes, typically we wait for at least the forecast or impending snow in the mountains to make those switchovers. And then definitely we're running into the season of cars stuck in the snow, and that is an issue that we have every year. People will go up for a drive and get stuck, and then call 911 or call a family member, which can be more problematic because then we don't know exactly where they are, and we're getting a third-party report. So definitely. Really important for people to be prepared, tell someone where they're going, take supplies with them. If there's snow where you're driving, going in sandals and shorts and a t-shirt, it might be warm in your car, but if your car gets stuck or trapped, then that can take a situation that would otherwise be, okay, call a friend, get some help out, and it could turn that into an emergency if your car dies and you can't heat it and you're in the snow. So,
or like they're like, I'm stuck up on the mountain. I'm in a two-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive Honda Accord. You're like,
there's
really?
there's a lot of situations where, yeah, definitely, while we give people the freedom to make good decisions, they don't necessarily do that.
All right.
So, encourage people definitely to be prepared, pack their cars.
Common sense is
So briefly, if someone talk about it, like, so let's say they're, they want to send a pin, or they want to, but you can't, because it's difficult to send an Apple, the Apple and Android thing and sending information back and forth. And recently I was flying a drone for a real estate thing, and I knew it was out in Palmer Junction. I knew that it was, there was no cell service out there. And so then beforehand, I found the location, and I looked up the numbers that went with that location, and I texted it to the guys and texted it to them. I talk about, just some common sense things that people might not know about that kind of stuff. So as far as it is, like getting help or just knowing where they are? Yeah, both. There's some people should tell people where they're going, right?
Yes. And one of the challenges we have is often they will get a report of someone being stuck in a local reference. And it's like, they're up where Bob shot his deer last year. Well, not only do I not know who Bob is, I don't know where he shot his deer.
Right, yeah.
So telling people using what is the more official designations of a roads, so like the 77 road or something like that. So not only where you're going, but what car you're in, what you have with you, and then if you do get in a predicament and need help, if you have just a little bit of phone battery left and you call a friend and say, hey, I'm really in a bad way, I need help, and then your phone goes dead. If they don't know where you are, that can be really problematic, because then they'll call, they can call the sheriff's office and say, hey, we have this friend up here who needs help, and we don't know where to go, they don't know where to go, and so then it becomes a search and not a rescue at that point. But if someone were to call 911, if they just have a little bit of battery left, then generally, in most cases with 911, we can get a fairly accurate location. So I would really encourage people, if you are in any sort of a situation that might become an emergency, if 911 is your first call, and you could say, hey, this is my situation, I'm going to try and call someone else. But if your phone's about to die, that makes our life so much easier in an emergency response, because then we know we have reasonably accurate GPS coordinates.
So, and people might not do that because, well, I'm not convinced I can't get out of here, right? And and I don't want to bother 911 with this non-emergency. That's why they wouldn't do that.
So, and if it's truly not an emergency, then don't call 911. 911 is for emergencies, but if it's something where if someone got stuck in the snow and they don't have anyone coming to help them, or the people coming to help them don't know where they are, that could very quickly become an emergency if they're not prepared and equipped to spend quite a bit of time in the woods in cold weather. So to prevent it from becoming an urgent emergency, then if they were to call 911, and it could be something as simple as, I don't know who else to call, or because maybe you don't have service through your normal carrier, but you likely may have service through 911.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because 911 will work on any carrier's network, not just your commercial network.
Oh, that's really helpful.
So definitely don't want people to be calling 911 at the first sign of I might need a hand.
Yeah.
If it's something simple, call a friend. But if not, call 911 before your phone dies.
Well, and I've spent a lot of time outdoors over the period of my life, and you're able to see. If you're a long ways from nowhere and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and your car dies and it's going to be cold that night, all of those situations are like, we got a decreasing window of daylight. It's going to be really cold. Those are some of the things that should trigger. It's like, this is more serious than it happening at 10 o'clock in the morning, you know.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it also makes it much more difficult for us
Right,
to try
yeah.
and get to someone. Or in some cases, we'll get a call. Can you try and communicate with this person to come get me?
Yeah.
And if they don't know necessarily where they are, if that call were to come in through a 911 line, then we'd be able to tell someone, hey, this is where this person's at. So I don't want to certainly encourage abuse of 911, but if someone is in a potentially emergent situation, definitely make that call before your phone dies, rather than calling all your friends and family in other states. And also carry a phone charger with you now that we have phone service in so many places, and especially with certain brands of phones having satellite ability for SOS.
Yeah.
If you have the ability to charge your phone, in a lot of cases, we can help you. We can find you sooner if you have a charged phone and communicate with you, rather than if you go out and your phone's at 20%, you decide to go for a drive, go snow wheeling. That's not a good decision.
So some phones now have satellite SOS. I wasn't aware.
Yes, so I am only aware of it with Apple phones.
Okay.
So the Apple iPhone 14s and newer have satellite SOS. So if you don't have cell phone service, you can, with the phone, if you have a view to the sky, you can, in many cases, activate an SOS. It works very similar to like a Garmin InReach or a Zoleo or a lot of those other satellite communicator devices. It goes to an Apple call center where they receive the information. And the phone, rather than it being initially like a text message to save data, it asks you questions. And is this a law enforcement, fire, medical emergency? And when you go through the series of questions, then it can send that just as a burst of code, that rather than having your custom message, it will know based on that code, okay, this is where they are and this is the type of assistance they need. And then after you do that, then it will open the opportunity to exchange text message.
Oh, interesting.
And certain call centers, if they have text to 911 capability, could directly do that, have that communication with the caller, or if they don't have text to 911 yet, would be able to just do that through the Apple call center. So it works very similar.
There is one Android phone that has it.
Oh, really?
The Pixel 9.
Awesome.
The new Pixel that just came out and dropped SOS satellite.
So do we have text to 911 yet?
So not yet here. It will be coming everywhere at some point, and sooner than later probably. But in Oregon, not all of the 911 centers currently have text to 911.
All right. Okay. Well, hey, anything else before we quit you want to highlight for us?
Nothing comes to mind unless if you have questions.
Yeah. No, thank you, Nick. It's interesting every time. You and I could spend, and we have spent a lot of time talking tech and rescue and emergency, and thanks for what you're doing, and you are certainly deserving of the award you got.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah.
It's great hanging out with you both.
Yeah, you bet. All right. Well, hey, before we take off, we did get a message about the Measure 119, and it said it would allow farm employees to work in a safer environment, electricity and water not to mix, for example, and it would allow them to unionize for a safer, controlled environment. So the point of it, I think, that is maybe potentially increases the work environment of the workers. So
That's the case. I'm all for it.
So
It makes it safer, for sure.
yeah. All right. Well, you want to get us out of here, man?
Let's do it.
Okay.
On this day, October 15th, 1878, Edison Electric Light Company is incorporated. 1924, on this date, U.S. President Calvin Coolidge declares the Statue of Liberty a national monument. 1951, on October 15th, I Love Lucy debuted on CBS television. 1952, Charlotte's Web by E.B. White is published by Harper & Brothers. 1952, so what is that, 54 years ago? I thought it was older than that. 1955, the country music show The Grand Ole Opry is first broadcast on TV in a live hour-long show on ABC. 2018, American retailer Sears files for bankruptcy. And then 2019, on this day, a record 12 Democratic presidential candidates participate in a live TV debate in Westerville, Ohio. 12 of them. On this day, the #1 movie in America 20 years ago was Shark Tale. And then the quote of the day comes from NFL legend George Halas. Nobody who ever gave his best regretted it. One more time. Nobody who ever gave his best regretted it. And that's the legendary Bears coach George Halas.
All right. So just real quick. So on our next show, which will either be Thursday or Friday. Thursday, and the guest will be Nelson Tracy, who is the director of Breakup Season. The local Breakup Season premiere is at McKinsey Theater on Friday night, and so if it's just Tracy, if it's just Nelson by himself, then he'll be here on Thursday. There's a possibility that he might be able to bring some of the cast, and if he can, then the show will be on Friday. So that's the AM live show. Again, just a reminder, Thursday night, we know for sure, is a LeGrand High School football game, and then on Friday night will be a Baker High School football game. So anyhow,
Grand plays Burns at 7 o'clock on Thursday night. Baker hosts Ontario on Friday night.
Yep. So
both 7 o'clock starts.
Yep. Busy weekend.
Homecoming for LeGrand.
Yep. All right. Hey, thank you guys, and we'll see you soon.